Great. Bernhard, let's kick off with you first with an initial question. You've been at the forefront of integrating technology into humanitarian responses. From your experience, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for leveraging tech to scale impact in emergency situations?
Yeah, it's a very interesting trick question, because it's like, first you need to find a real big problem that you're trying to solve. And this is where I think, and I believe, technology can really be one of these key enablers that helps to make that step change. So it's about when you're saying, whether it's now blockchain, Web3, whether it's crypto or AI, I think like this is where a lot of opportunity is there, specifically about solving and bringing solutions that you otherwise were never able to do. And like you see the same thing in AI, where right now we're able to do things that we couldn't do 3 years ago. Same thing with blockchain or Web3, where you actually can leverage and you can solve issues that otherwise you would not be able to solve. So it's not just by we can hire 10,000 people, yes, but like there's this big opportunity that, and you see that both on the AI side, where people never thought about that, all of a sudden, like you democratize access to information, and like, everybody can take part in like actually in like, for instance, being like having precision agriculture information for smaller farmers. And we see the same thing for blockchain or like stable coin payments or digital wallets that we use for cash transfers. And just to give you like a small nugget of, so this is something, WFP last year we transferred a total of $2.9 billion of cash to people. So like wallets, credit cards, but also crypto or stable coins. Now, imagine if you have better traceability. Imagine if you have better end-to-end like visibility, deduplication, like all the, everybody who's heard the previous panels, like there's lots of benefits, and we can reap them also for humanitarian response.
That's fascinating. It's interesting to hear how a United Nations entity is at the forefront of technology and talking about crypto, talking about stablecoin. Are there any examples you could give us of some things that you're doing, just to give some flavor for some of the more technologically advanced areas?
Yeah, and so for those of you who are maybe not as familiar with the space, I think this is where it can be a really interesting opportunity as well, where the previous panel was talking about this, where yes, in some of the countries in the global south, maybe it's possible to actually pilot something or pioneer something that otherwise would not be possible. And just, I'll give you a couple of examples. So we've been using a solution that's called building blocks. First, piloted like in Bangladesh and in Jordan. Also, together using identities from UNHCR as a e-wallet for where refugees can actually go into stores or displaced people and purchase food. So that started off. We've transferred $630 million through that system historically, saved $3 million in bank fees. Sounds great, $3 million saved. But we are also actually now using this in Ukraine, and like as a deduplication mechanism, 60 different UN entities and NGOs. So it's not about the cash transfers there, but it's like essentially that's what blockchain was designed for, like the interoperability. And we've been able to identify $180 million of potential duplicate transactions that didn't happen. So we saved essentially $180 million that were reinvested into more aid for people. And then even in giving the last example here, like HesaPay, actually with Algorand Foundation, like so we've been using that kind of like as digital wallets in Afghanistan. Again, specific use case, people can go into stores, purchase food. And I think these are the types of opportunities where it's like all of a sudden, like not only is it more efficient, more effective, it's more accountable, but it's also better for the people. They actually can now go into stores, purchase what they want. They don't have to worry about where the money is coming from. They don't have to worry about, I need to go to a distribution point, maybe I'm getting a cash card, maybe I get physical food. Like this is where it is really interesting.
Yeah, it's great. And it also shows that you're giving choice to people, beneficiaries. It's not just imposing a solution onto them. Can I ask one more follow-up question? You had talked a little bit about scaling on impact. And there is this initiative that is getting a lot of traction now called Food for Crisis. And that's something the World Food Programme, the GBBC Giving, and a few other partners are involved in. Could you share some insights in terms of what this is and some of the results?
Yeah, and this is really exciting. Where with GBBC we launched Food for Crisis Web3 initiative together with partners, so Filecoin Foundation, Adonic. So we actually launched the first pilot doing this, and the idea here was, what if we leverage the full power of Web3 towards cash transfers and going into traceability of donations, going into accountability of donations. Again, using populations that otherwise might not actually have the opportunity to use these types of modality. Now, in Peru, we've actually been piloting this now with Idonic. And it's interesting. So right now we're looking into okay, do we scale that particular pilot? Do we actually work with different other traceability factors across different countries? And I do believe, and this is where, if you look at the crypto markets, and the hypothesis was, what do we need to do so that people understand and actually believe, not only that, they trust me because I have a friendly face without a doctor, but it's actually about well, you can go into the transaction and you have the proof that the money has ended up where it's supposed to be. And I think this is where the opportunity lies.
What strikes me also is how you are working with the private sector all over the world. That's really quite innovative and fascinating. Moving to Dr. Muntean, Nigina, could you, UNFPA has been a driving force for this Equity 2030 alliance that you kindly showed us the brochure for. Can you tell us a little bit more about the initiative, and can you share how technology has been leveraged to advance gender equity, and particularly through this initiative?
Thank you. And by the alliance and our efforts in that, we're really challenging the human-centric approach. You're all familiar with that, and it's generations here already. However, what we found out, it's actually half human-centric, it's male-centric. In most of the cases, women are not equitably included in the design of the solutions. And as a result, obviously, the solution may not work, or maybe even harmful, or sometimes it's even lethal when we talk about car crashes and the female crash dummies not being used in the car safety. So female drivers, even female in passenger seats, are times more likely to be injured or die in a car collision. We talk about AI when it's over 80% of outcomes are gender biased because women are not part of the database. And AI is something people still control, right? It's how we feed it, how we train it. And we go further. We go science clinical trials where technology is a big part, diagnostics now all over healthcare. If women are not part of it, don't expect it to work for women in the way it should be working. And the financing, only 1% of global R&D volume, which is $2.5 trillion US, only 1% goes to female health, women-centric solutions. So this is what we're challenging. And as a UN, we do not ourselves produce technology or clinical trials, but we have a convening power. We bring private sector, we bring champions like GBBC, we bring top tech companies like Adobe, Salesforce, HP, SAP. We bring pharmaceuticals. We bring investors and foundations and funds to help us to champion that you can do well by doing good. It's a business case proposition. You produce technology which work for all, you expand your markets, you expand your revenue, you expand your sales, and you do not do harm. You actually do something which is useful for all of the population, so not just half. And we go beyond that. We go to the communities we serve, because we, as all UN agencies, are working in all countries. We are present in 150 countries and territories in emerging markets. We want them to be, those communities to be included. We don't want to bring technology which was designed in developed countries and expect it will work in developing countries. It doesn't. We have to be conscious about their needs and what they actually need and what works for them without assuming that, but actually asking them and including them in the process.
Sounds like critical work that you're doing to bring awareness to this issue, because it's certainly an issue. Could you tell us a little bit more about who's part of the alliance, or how can one join the alliance to be part of this movement to try and bring more gender parity, and also just acknowledge and understand some of the different stakeholders that need to also be considered?
Thank you. So the alliance is now 1 year old exactly, and we launched it also at the WEF last year. And we now have over 100 members and champions and experts. It's very easy to join. We don't ask any financial contributions, even any kind of commitments for future. You can Google UNFPA Equity 2030 Alliance. You will find the website. what we're asking is to share one publicly available use case, what you do in your company to champion and really either women-centric investments or women-centric solutions or gender-equitable design. We understand it's a beginning of journey. We want to normalize this conversation. So not all companies can say across everything we do, we are 100% in a good class. No, it is a journey. But if you can demonstrate at least one use case where you can say we're doing it, it's working, and we want to share what we have with others, this is what we need. And that's the only requirement to join the Alliance. We really are looking for voices, for champions, for people who can help us to leverage and amplify this message.
Thank you. You mentioned AI before. How do you support more equitable application of AI, and especially these marginalized communities that you work with on the ground in 150 countries? How do their voices get heard?
So by walking the talk, basically, when we say be inclusive, this is what we do when we use any AI technology. And I can give some examples. We introduced the AI-powered antenatal scan ultrasound in Honduras. And the technology was developed in Europe. When we brought it to Honduras, we knew it will not be 100% accurate because it wasn't trained on the women in Honduras. So we partnered with the Ministry of Health and started to do training on the women in Honduras, pregnant women. And a lot of the things should have to be corrected, and a lot of the data set were adjusted. But at the end, we started to receive much better results. And now, healthcare workers in a rural area where they don't have any healthcare facilities or any traditional conventional ultrasounds, they can scan with something which looks as basically like app on a smartphone, and the AI can guide them. Is there high risk and the woman should see a doctor, or is there low risk and she can continue her pregnancy and come back in 1 to 3 months? So this is where the AI, which sounds as a very much rocket science for many developing countries, but actually complement the lack of skills and be in bridging this knowledge and expertise where it's not there. And this is amazing how we see the impact of that. And we also have similar projects on like educational chatbots powered by AI in India, for example. And we do train it on the midwives in India, on the young adolescent girls in India. Or if we do it in Eastern Africa, we train it on population there. So that's, and we see the difference. We really see the difference, especially when we bring technology which was originally developed in a different region. It really changes. So again, my plea is do not assume that even if the most amazing technology is gender neutral and can be an inclusive, it can work anywhere, it doesn't.
It's wonderful to see how you're trying to get practical knowledge, awareness, solutions on the ground already in something that's so new. Thank you for that and the amazing work you're doing. Dr. Wagman, Shlomit, can you tell us about your most recent Harvard white paper that highlights the role of fintech and blockchain in building a safer future in conflict areas based on your experience in regulation and policy? How can these techs be advanced humanitarian action?
Thank you. So indeed, as a follow-up on the project that we've just heard, I realized that when you're distributing financial aid, it came as a result of my work. The payment companies that I work with, Rapid, distribute financial aid to refugees in Ukraine. And there are always questions on how we make sure that funds are reaching their destination and how it does not go to corruption, does not get wasted along the way, illicit uses, or sanction people. But in addition to all of that, in conflict areas, we also have additional concerns that people usually do not think of, and this is terrorism financing. And it came to my mind after the October 7th event. I testified before the US Senate about how to combat terrorism financing and what should be done. And I realized that one of the sources in which Hamas, which is a designated terror organization by the US, the UN, and the EU and others, was using financial aid to build tunnels channels instead of giving that to the people. So I was thinking about how to create an infrastructure that could ensure for countries that are distributing financial assistance to refugees, to the reconstructions work that will happen at some day, how we can ensure that those funds will reach their intended destination and will not fall under a designated organization. And I developed a plan which actually offers to use blockchain technology, stablecoin, I suggested even calling it Gaza coin, private stablecoin, that will be used in order to monitor that and give countries the comfort to know that when they are investing funds to the reconstruction of the region, it actually goes there. And this can be also applied to other locations as well, like Syria and other regions where you have concerns for terrorism financing. The advantages are clear. This is a transparent environment that can be monitored when needed. You have the comfort for the countries that want to contribute an organization like the UN and anyone else that want to make sure that funds are not reaching illegal users, and it also reduced cost. In addition to that, we can enjoy the reduction of corruption and misuse of funds along the way, and we can ensure that you could actually see where funds are going. You could KYC the entire environment, ramp off, ramp on, and make sure that funds are reaching their destination. This project is now being adopted by international organizations and governments that are eager to find a secure way to transfer their assistance to the region, and hopefully we will see the use of that. Those are areas that technology is not, there is no lack of technology. Everyone has cell phone, there is Wi-Fi, there is the technology. You just need to implement that, and that could support good cause.
Thank you. You've had many hats. You were formerly a regulator as well. In terms of collaboration with the humanitarian sector, you alluded to that. Are there any concrete ways you feel regulators and others, such as FATF and related organizations, can work more closely and collaboratively with humanitarian organizations?
Yes, definitely. International organizations are familiar more or less with the framework of ensuring that funds will not reach designated entities or people or sanctions entities. However, I see that there is some areas of misunderstanding, or they don't have the toolbox that will allow them to actually ensure that. They always have this dilemma between privacy concern and just to make sure that the funds will reach as fast as possible to their intended or hopefully intended destination. And by doing so, sometimes they are losing some control across the way. And here again, I think that blockchain is a great opportunity for them as well to work on that and making sure that the environment is more KYC'd and protected.
Great, thank you so much. I think in our last 5 minutes, we could perhaps have a rapid-fire question looking forward from each of our panelists. Bernhard, perhaps we start with you. So looking ahead, what is the one transformative change you'd like to see in humanitarian action in the next 5 years or sooner? How can your work contribute to this transformation? Seems like you guys are way ahead, so maybe you will do it sooner. What advice would you give to those watching or listening in to support this change?
So it's a tough question, right? But you know, that's why we're here. So I would say really like what's the transformative change? Like how can we really use cutting edge technologies to solve and really get together and solve something big, right? And sometimes, you know, people just say this and like there's no substance behind, but like I truly mean this, right? Like when you say like, what is a big challenge that through technology, working with private sector, with investors, with humanitarian agencies, what can we actually solve? And I think if we're truthful and I invite us here, everybody, to actually think about this, where if we're able to do this, and like we're still living in a global food crisis, there's wars, there's disasters, like there's climate change, and all of these things happen. Like, what could we do possibly, and like get together and say, like, okay, like that's something that's really visionary and a breakthrough that we should be working on, and whether this is like, you know, food for crisis, whether this is something like, you know, maybe cash transfers towards like vulnerable population groups, like, or whether it's, you know, microcredits to women, which we're also working on. But like, this is something, there is a lot of opportunities that we can really tackle. Now, what can we do is really, I think, I mean, with the limitations, but also like thinking about like the assets we have, World Food Program, similar to like other international organizations, we actually help people. We work with local governments, communities, the private sector. Like we actually have people, in countries, so we can actually work on piloting, scaling solutions that others couldn't. And I think that's something to hold in the back of our heads to say like, what can we possibly be doing to do a lot of more of that? And I think that's my, the ask is like, okay, whoever wants to come on board, like, let's talk, because like I think this could be really, really transformational. And we're living in times where, like 10 years ago, like, okay, maybe some people were talking about like, the bitcoins that you had, but like, let's blockchain applications, Web3, like all we can do, like there's so many opportunities that we haven't at all leveraged, right? And that's something that I'm looking forward to.
Thanks, Bernhard. Dr. Wagman?
I would suggest bringing over private sector into the humanitarian environment and get their assistance in distributing the financial aid. We could use bankers and accountants to create the environment, and then to just bring, the technology exists. It's all over there. We don't need to reinvent anything. We just need to plug and play a package with everything that is need to be there. Make sure that there are some accountant or expert that can supervise that, and just channel the funds through those, just use those channels to send out funds. It will be much more secure. It will save costs. Funds will reach their destination much faster, and we'll have transparency, visibility. We'll know exactly where things are going. And also we could support that with supply chain with respect to additional elements, not only financial means, but other supply chain that could be monitored via blockchain. So I think that private sector has to enter into those domains and take more significant role.
Thank you, Shlomit. Dr. Muntean?
I really agree with you. We need to bring more private sector, because a lot of solutions exist, and wherever we as UN often find ourselves struggling, because sometimes we take this, we need to invent it. We don't. We need to use what is already there. And where we're struggling sometimes with tracking our commodities when we bring it to communities. Soft drink companies know exactly where the little stall with Pepsi Cola, Coca-Cola and everything stand. They know, even with no connectivity in that area, they know. We should be able to leverage it. Pharmaceutical companies mastered cold chain and delivery of the medicines all over the world. We can learn from it. We can really bring. What we offer as added value, though, is connection and inclusivity of those communities. Not all private sector companies have access to those developing markets, emerging markets. We can facilitate it. We can use what we have, and as Bernhard mentioned, we have trust by communities, by governments, by national stakeholders, more than any private sector company. So if we work together, we can really leverage these both strengths, inclusivity, and really, sometimes it doesn't require moonshot. It just requires roof shot. And simple solution works. And again, almost all of them exist. We can just find a way how to best use this.
Thanks, Nigina. And on those inspiring words from our three panelists, a big thank you to you all for the amazing work you do, and also for being here and sharing your thoughts with us today. And thanks to GBBC for organizing this event.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.